See through it. See the faces on the advertisement. There's a lady is smiling. The child has got a good marks. The parents are happy. What is really selling today? It is happiness. In various forms, people sell happiness to you. Only commodity which is getting sold in the world today is something called happiness. Other than happiness, nothing is sold. No transaction is possible. Only thing which is sold is happiness. But happiness is not a commodity. Okay? So it's packaged as a commodity and sold to you in different ways. When we buy a car, we are buying happiness. When we are buying a house, we are buying happiness. Happiness is a soft thing. Happiness is not a commodity. Happiness cannot be packaged. But happiness is converted into a commodity and sold to you for a commercial transaction purpose. The most selling product in the universe today is something called happiness. Are we craving for happiness? Why so much of demand for a product called happiness? Why? It's a supply and demand. It's a market economy. If there is a supply, if there is a demand, supply will be there and the price will be there. Right? So, is happiness such a commodity where everybody craving for it? This is about forgettable products, consumer products, TV, fridge, car, everything. Happiness is sold to you in the form of religion. Happiness is sold to you in the form of spirituality. Why are we seeking, we are craving for that experience called happiness? Why that commodity called happiness in such a great demand?
Nobody wants to be, everyone needs happiness. Nobody wants to be.
So, you used a very appropriate word.
Because it is our true nature.
She's used a very appropriate nature and used a right thing. Everybody needs happiness. Have you thought of this word called need and want? What is the difference between need and want?
Need is a basic thing. And
Need is something which is required for your survival. Okay? Basic thing. Food is your need. Sleep is your need. Shelter is your need. Right? And want is you can have its own. Right? So you said happiness is a need. And without happiness we cannot survive. Is that true? Without food we can survive, but without happiness we cannot survive. Is it true? So happiness is more basic than roti, kapda or makan. Is it true? You may have roti, you may have kapda, you may have makan, but if you don't have happiness, you will die. Happiness is more fundamental than roti, kapda or makan. Do you realize that? A person who is in a depressed state of mind, even if he stays in a palace, he will not survive. Happiness is more fundamental, more basic than what politicians promise. Roti, kapda or makan.
if he is happy, we think of eating and
So happiness is more basic to human being than other things. That's why happiness has more demand in the whole global marketplace. Now, why it has become so important, so basic to our existence? Why we crave for happiness? Please tell me. Why? What makes us crave for happiness?
We moved away from things which give us happiness.
We have moved away.
We moved away from the basic essence of happiness, so we try to get back.
We have moved away from the basic state of happiness. We are trying to get back. Why you want to get back to happiness?
no. If we want to live, we need to be happy. Otherwise, there is no purpose in
The
life.
question is, I understood that. Happiness is basic. But why have we a craving for that?
Live without happiness. If there is a hope, if there is a happiness, then we can present then there is a desire to live. If we are sad every time.
Okay, you have mixed up two words. One is hope and happiness. Let's go back to happiness.
to live a peaceful life. For peaceful living.
So peace and happiness are two words we are using. Okay?
It's our home. It's our home. That's the real nature. We have come far away from that.
That's where our real nature is. Okay? We are moving away from that, we feel restless. That's what you'll say. Right? See a scenario where you're happy. The moment you are happy, how do you feel? In a state of happiness, it feels expansiveness. Your boundaries are forgotten. The boundaries dissolve.
Limitlessness.
You feel limitless. The experience of unboundedness is what is happiness is all about. So, are we looking for happiness or are we looking for experience of unboundedness? That name is given as happiness. What we are looking for is a feeling of unbounded expansion. That we may call as name as happiness. In reality, we are craving for that unbounded experience of being boundless, boundaryless. And for that experience we are calling happiness. Happiness is an English word. In reality, we are seeking constantly to be free from boundaries.
If you are seeking happiness only, why are you seeking in different ways?
Sorry, what's the word?
If you are seeking happiness only, why are you seeking in different ways?
I'll come to that. Why are you seeking happiness in different ways? We'll come to that, right?
Everyone has his own perspective.
Correct. So, if you are seeking, what is the question, please?
If you are seeking happiness only, these people are seeking in different ways.
Correct.
Different perspectives.
So, I'll define the happiness, right? We have to define the terminologies before we get into that. So, first let me say what we are really seeking in terms of happiness is boundless experience. That's all, simple. I want to feel free from all boundaries. That is my definition of happiness. Okay? Now, let us see how really it happens. Okay? How it happens that we feel a boundary. Okay? So, we are feeling that we are within a boundary most of the time. We want to get out of that boundary for some time through seeking happiness. In reality, our craving is to get into the state of being free from boundary always, eternally. The deep inside craving is, I want to be happy all the time. That I am translating in English, happiness word I am translating, that I want to be in a state of being without boundary all the time, every time. That is called craving for eternal happiness. Eternally want to be in a state of freedom. Have you seen anybody being in that state of freedom? Have you?
It's possible only for spiritual rishis or sadhus.
It is possible.
It is possible.
Definitely possible.
Definitely possible. So, there is one viewpoint, two schools of thought. It is possible for rishis.
Because they have.
Okay, because they have found some magical formula.
No, it's not magical.
Okay, some logical
They have
formula.
renounced everything and they have.
So, renouncement leads to happiness is one condition. So, after you renounce, the conditions disappear. So, now you are having a conditioned happiness. So, one school of thought is, after renouncing, you will feel happiness. The other school of thought is, happiness is possible always. So, which school of thought shall we pursue?
Always happiness is possible.
Always happiness is possible, it's bigger possible. Renouncing chhod do yaar, it's not possible. Right? Go to the ashram, have a dress, and having a beard possible for men, women it's not possible. So, right? So, you don't put so many conditions on happiness. Why already you are conditioned? Why are you putting some more conditions on happiness? After renounce, I become happy. Alright? Why are you doing so much of condition for happiness? This conditioning is coming from the mind. So, is it possible for us to go beyond this conditioning and experience happiness? So, for that we have to understand those beings who are in a state of happiness. Then we may try to understand what is going on in this state. See, it is like this. Nothing in the world is magical. Okay? There's a logic behind that. There's a process behind that. If you understand the process, if you understand the logic, and if you are able to apply in your life, then everything is possible. The question is there a process? Is there logic behind being happy all the time?
People will be happy until they are getting what they are expected. One moment they are not expected, it's not coming to them.
So, something you are not getting as expected, you will be unhappy. People will be unhappy. Right? So, that is the definition of unhappiness, but that's not the definition of happiness. That's what you are saying is what makes people unhappy. But that's not what makes people happy.
But you are in the state of that happiness until that.
Alright. So, we have to understand how the mind operates to understand the crack this code of being happy. Understand? Are you ready for that? It only costs you a couple of $1 million. Because everybody is selling the product called happiness, and I'm trying to telling you how to make that product called happiness. It should be much more expensive than any of the products available in the market. Right?
It's already expensive less. Because we are the source of happiness, we have to climb less.
So, the product is not for you if you are already the source of happiness. The product is for people who are seeking happiness, craving for happiness. For them, I am giving the formula of happiness. This is the step number 1, 2, 3. Apply this and you will get happiness.
Nothing like that.
Nothing like that. It's going to be very expensive for all of you. Okay? I am not giving you, I am giving you intellectual property rights on the product itself. This is the happiness formula. So, you have to understand why we are unhappy. Then we can understand what is happiness. Okay? So, let me take different conditions for being unhappy. There was a survey made back in probably 2003, 2004 to find out the happiest people on the earth. They did a survey of all the people in all the countries. They took a sample survey and tried to find out which country has a population who is very happy. Okay? There's the United States, which is richest country in the world. There's Nigeria, which is poorest country in the world. There's India, there's Pakistan, there's Burma, there's Bangladesh, many countries. Anybody can guess which country in the world has been very, very happy? So, answer is India? Surprisingly no. The country which is considered as most happy country in the world in that particular survey, surprisingly, is Bangladesh. And let us understand why it is so. Huh? Bangladesh is a country, okay, Bangladesh is a country which was economically underdeveloped at that point of time. So there is no choice for anything. Okay? So whatever you are there, okay? So if the moment you have a choice, the unhappiness creeps. No, I'm not saying that. I'm not concluding that. Okay? There are different conditions we look at it. Then we see how our living can be like that. So not getting any choice is not the solution. Living a choiceless life is a solution. So how it's different, we'll see. So imagine you are in a job in Bangladesh. Let's just say some simple job, maybe a laundering, adobe laundering. Now if you lose the job, there is no way you can get another job. So this person works for 1 year, 2 years, 10 years. So he is happy with what he is getting. Look at America. You brought the latest, what is that, car? Okay? And what the hell? Your neighbor brought the next model of the car at $10,000 less. So restlessness starts. Why the hell I need to pay $10,000 more for a car which is one model earlier? The more the choice you have in your life, the more mind keeps on switching. This or that, this or that. Okay? And whatever you get, unless you compare with what you didn't get, what somebody else got. So the choice, what you have in your life, makes you, becomes a cause of unhappiness unless you use your choice very intelligently.
Sir, I have one more mistake actually. We are unhappy because of we are connected to other people also. If other people want something which is new and something which is
Correct.
more expensive.
Correct. The moment you have a choice, okay, you made a choice, right? I mean, I tell jokingly, right? Before marriage and during courtship, your wife looks like a Tripura Sundari, the most beautiful woman on the earth. Until you get married and see your neighbor's wife. So the moment you made a choice and somebody made a choice, you become restless. Comparison makes us restless. Okay? So we are not seeing why choice should be there, we are not seeing why choice should not be there. We are looking at the parameters of what makes us unhappy. I am not come to the parameters of what makes us happy. First let us understand unhappiness. Right? The choice of what I make and choice of what somebody else makes me unhappy. Because I compare. If I didn't have a comparison, then what can make you unhappy? Please tell me.
Health issues.
We'll come to the health. Right? First I'm saying I have a choice in life. I made a comparison. If it is possible for me to live without a comparison, what can make me unhappy? But is it possible to live that way?
Because there is no progress at all. There is no comparison.
Sorry? Okay, there's no progress. What is it? Somebody else.
Acceptance level should be high.
What do you mean by acceptance level? I don't compare with anybody. Can I live without comparing with anybody?
You can't also.
So, the first.
Motivation should be from within, like how to move on and what you want.
If you are able to compare yourself, what you are yesterday and improve today,
That's the better way of living.
then you are possibly moving it towards a state of not unhappiness. I cannot guarantee it's happiness, but at least you are avoiding conditions of unhappiness. Okay? You understand what I am saying? If you are able to do a comparison of what you were yesterday, try to work towards what you can be better tomorrow, not comparing with your neighbor, not comparing with your boss, not comparing with your enemy. But if you are able to compare with respect to yesterday what you are and try to build your life based on what you are today,
And what you want to become.
what you want to become, we'll find out, because want is something. Okay, so if you are able to reduce the number of comparisons in your life, possibly you will be less unhappy. I can't guarantee.
Even there you can say yesterday I was still today.
Okay, so right. So even there you can say yesterday I was so good condition, today I am happy. So basically it boils down to the choice and comparison. These two trigger unhappiness in us. Okay. So then another thing which is told, if I don't get what I want, I'll be unhappy. Right? I don't get what I want, there is unhappiness. So what does it mean actually? I want something in life, maybe a better job, maybe more money, maybe something in life. If I get that, I am happy. If I don't get that, I am unhappy. If I don't get it but somebody else gets it, I am more unhappy. So this is our situation in life. So what's happening to us? We are putting so many conditions on happiness. Conditions apply. Can we have happiness without conditioning, applying conditions? Possible,
Possible. Definitely.
right?
It's the internal feeling, like.
Climbing, what is climbing? If I climb the body mind, I will be not happy always.
Right.
If I climb the real soul that I am the consciousness of Brahman or Atman, I will be always happy.
Yes, absolutely. So, the sense of I causes unhappiness, we'll come to that, right? Now you have a situation here. Getting something in life or not getting something in life makes me happy or unhappy. Now let us understand the mind, what happens in these both situations. I want something in life. I want this. I want that. I want. If this happens, what happens to the mind? Please tell me. Mind keeps on generating thoughts. Continuously generates thoughts. I want. The more I want, the more faster the thoughts will come. The more and more speedier thoughts will come. Faster and faster thoughts will come. When the more and more thoughts will come, we say that is a state of restlessness of the mind. Then, fortunately for you, you got what you wanted. Then what happened to the restless mind?
It asks for something more.
No, before it asks, for a moment, you got.
Happiness stays for a short while.
The thoughts will stop. Because it's running, machine is running. I want. You got it. That I want thought stops. Because you got it. Next thought has not come, okay? Your neighbor has not got a car. Right? The momentarily there is a stopping of the thought process. And that is called happiness. When the thought process has stopped momentarily, your experience of life is called happiness. The continuous running of the thought is called restlessness. The restless mind will take you away from your restful state, which is your own natural state. The momentarily you got something, the mind came to rest. Where did it rest? It rested in its own natural state, which is your being. The moment it rested in natural state, the mind became silent. It rested in natural state. You got what you wanted. You got your car. You saw around and say, I am so happy. And when you said, I am so happy, that is the end of restful state of the mind. So restlessness started because thoughts started coming. Mind is in a state of rest as long as thoughts are not there. The moment you say, I am happy, please understand you are not happy. Because you are only recollecting the state of happiness, not the happiness itself. When you say, I am happy, actually you are not in a state of happiness. You have come out of the state of happiness. You are only recollecting what happiness is about and say, I am happy. You are missing that happiness.
So we have to cut down the thought process.
No. That's not the conclusion. Because then I will be telling you so many things impossible, right? First, we have to analyze this whole process. Then we have to see what is the way of living for that. Correct? Because we should not put some unreasonable expectation. One simple thing is you become a monk, renouncer, you will get happiness. Are Baba, type of problems after renounce are much more than what problems what you have today. So renunciation is not a solution for happiness. Understanding the process of happiness is solution. Okay? So what you have, understand that the state of restlessness of the mind, which is generation of thought, moves you away from your natural state. Okay? And whenever somebody says I am happy, he is not speaking about happiness, he is speaking of recollection of happiness, not the happiness itself. When you are happy, please understand, you are so expansive, so fulfilled, you don't feel need to speak. The moment you feel need to speak, that means you have missed that state of expansion. Why? When you are feeling expansion, why do you want to come out of that? Yeah? Be blissful. Why you want to speak? The moment you speak, you are speaking about something you missed just now. So people miss that and say their thoughts as happiness, whereas the thought is only indicating what happiness was, not what happiness is. When happiness is, there are no thoughts.
How long can we stay in that state?
Always. The problem is you have to understand the process, right? Without understanding the process, you cannot get there. So I'm getting into one by one. I'm bringing you awareness. What are the steps involved in that? Are we clear? When I say I am in happiness, I am not in happiness. I can only recollect what happiness is. But we make a mistake then again. What mistake we make? I am happy. I got a new car, brand new car. You say, okay. You mistook two things to that. One is you attained happiness. Then you said, I became happy because I got a car. Both are errors. Double error, not single error. Why is double error? Because you felt happy, not because you got a car, because your mind became mind went into a silent state. And you came out of that and you called the silent state as happiness, and you say feel happiness because you are able to see the car. So now you have done a double error. You have missed what is your actual state of happiness, how you attained it, when the mind became silent. And compounded to that, you clubbed that with the state of another object, car. So it has nothing to do with the car, has nothing to do with happiness actually. Car has something to do with your state of your mind. So you missed the point. The moment you committed this error, so then your list of I want this, if I don't get this, I will be unhappy. If I get this, I will be happy. The list will keep on growing because always you are mistaking your happiness for getting something, not a state of your being. You are committing a mistake and error, converting a state into getting and not getting. A state is converted into action. The moment you convert action will have a result will be make you happy or unhappy. In reality, happiness or unhappiness or happiness has nothing to do with the result, nothing to do what you get in life. Because it is not a result of action, it's a result of your state when the mind is in restful condition. Right? So happiness is not a result of getting something or not getting something. It's a confusion which you have introduced in our life that by getting something I'll be happy, by not getting something I'll be unhappy. Happiness has nothing to do with getting or not getting. Happiness is your state of being that you can experience when the mind is silent. This is the condition. Only condition for happiness in your life is to have a silent state of mind. It appears to be very tough. Renunciation is very easy. Dropping something is easy. How to make mind silent? That is the challenge.
Dropping is not easy, sir. It is yours.
Sorry?
Dropping is not easy, it is yours.
Dropping is not easy, it is yours. But what happens is that hope for happiness sometimes becomes so powerful. Right? So hope for happiness is like hum honge kamyab ek din. One day after day I'll be happy. So I'll find some means of being happy. We try to do we do a lot of tricks. That's why you said the list of conditions. I want this, I want this, I want this. All become conditions to happiness. I'm nothing wrong. I don't say it's right or wrong. That's the way of life. To get something, grow, earn money, make a vehicle, buy a house, all those things are fine. But what I'm saying is, your state of happiness has nothing to do with that. They're not related. But people link these two and confuse themselves and confuse others also. Okay. So we have come to a conclusion, come to understanding that choice makes the mind restless. Choice of ours and choice of somebody makes restless. The choice leads to comparison, comparison makes restless mind. The desire for getting something makes the mind restless. When the mind comes to standstill, when you get that what you want, we feel happy. But the feeling of happiness, the moment you say I am happy, the feeling of happiness is displaced by a thought. That means you have come out of that. And happiness is a state of infinity, boundlessness. So these are the understanding what you have reached so far. So let me introduce some little bit terminologies for you so that we don't mix up, because everybody is trying to sell happiness in so many ways, package so many things. So let us be a bit clear. We use different terminology. Pleasure. It's a pleasure meeting you. It's a pleasant sensation. I was sitting in that misty morning, had a cup of coffee, pleasant smell. Right? We use pleasant. What is pleasant? It is pleasing to the senses, is called pleasant. Alright? The pleasing to the senses is called pleasant. I enjoyed a cup of ice cream. I enjoyed the vacation. When you consume something, you say, I enjoyed. I am very happy. I got a promotion. So what you are saying is, pleasure is about sensation. Joy is about consumption. Happiness is about getting something or not getting something. Happiness is about getting something. Happiness, I am saying, a state of the mind when your mind came to standstill. Okay? When the mind was in a state of silence, your experience is called bliss. Bliss is when the mind is serene and silent. So we are using different terminologies confusingly. Pleasure, joy, enjoyment, happiness and bliss. They are not same. They are different terminologies. The pleasure is when you experience the sensation. Joy is when you consume something. Happiness is when your mind becomes silent. You experience the bliss. Recollection of the bliss is called happiness. It's a name given to that. So what are we really seeking? Are we seeking pleasure? Are we seeking joy? Are we seeking happiness? Or are we seeking bliss?
All of them. We want all of them.
So out of this, pleasure is temporary. It depends. The hot cup of coffee, the pleasant cup of coffee depends on the mood of your wife. Conditions apply. So if you say my wife's mood has to be throughout the day same, it's very, very unreasonable. So if you say I want pleasure all the time, it's very unreasonable demand on the surrounding and the nature. So definitely when I speak eternal happiness, it's nothing to do with eternal pleasure. Okay? I enjoyed the vacation. How many days you can enjoy a vacation? Huh? It's also temporary. When I speak of eternal happiness, definitely I am not speaking of your enjoyment. that's temporary. Then in your own terminology, when you say happiness, I'm seeking happiness. I got a car, I'm happy. I got a promotion, I'm happy. I'm not speaking that happiness also. Because that also, the moment you got a promotion, and you came to know that the neighbor got a promotion but double increment, you got only single increment, happiness will be replaced with unhappiness. And I'm sure you don't have any leverage or political ability in your corporate to reduce this increment and increase your increment. So I'm definitely not speaking of happiness derived out of getting something. Sorry? So, and also I'm pointing out that happiness, what you call, is not happiness. It's an experience of bliss. Recollection is called happiness. When? Sorry? You have to keep on pursuing. So, the topic, what we say eternal happiness, is actually, the eternal happiness is called bliss. Okay? So, it's not a pursuit. It's not a gain. It's your state of the being. And the state of the being when the mind is in a state of rest. So that is called eternal happiness. That's called bliss. So are we clear about the definition? Are we on the same page? The pleasure, joy, because people have a lot of fantasies about happiness. Right? Because the product called happiness is sold in many ways, packaged in many ways, sometimes soap, sometimes cars, sometimes job, sometimes many ways. So I am saying happiness means
People who are very lonely,
very what?
very
Lonely.
The feeling of lonely because they are silent and they doesn't have any thoughts, still they will be sad, not happy.
So you have to understand difference between loneliness and aloneness.
Yeah, I know.
Okay? The lonely is you are there. This you're seeking, your happiness is in relation to others. There are nobody else around me, no relationship are ever present there. I am feeling lonely. Loneliness is in relation to others. Aloneness is non-related to others.
Yeah, I know.
Okay? Aloneness is a state of bliss. Loneliness is a state of unhappiness. So I'm trying to point out to you that a state of bliss is what we crave, not happiness or in so many words. Right? So how do you attain that state of bliss? Meditation is also conditions apply. I meditated in the morning when nobody in the house was there. I meditated, I felt so blissful. The moment you said that, you have come to happiness, not bliss. Then what happened to 23 hours of a day? Right? So 23 hours of the day, you started craving for the blissful state called meditation, and you want to do meditation throughout the day. And definitely as a housewife or an employee, you can't do 24 hours meditation. And you cannot renounce and do meditation in the forest because there are no forest today. And you cannot go to ashram because the problems in ashrams are much more than problems in the politics. So where will you attain bliss, Mr. Oh my God, Himalayas. That's another big story. Okay, bliss in Himalayas. So it's 8 o'clock. I have to stop at this point unless you permit me to go further. Okay? No, you say, but I have to say the audience. Because I have taken a topic and like all the serials, Dharma, mega serials, you stop at a point where there is very interesting. So how to go to that state of bliss? Right? It's 8 o'clock. So it's 8 o'clock. Till what time should I continue? Time out. Please tell me.
How long it takes?
People spend millions of dollars. Okay, they go to Himalayas, they go to what are places to get happiness. Okay, it's 8 o'clock. Shall we close at 8:15 or 8:30?
8:30.
8:30 is okay?
8:30.
We'll close it. So, the restlessness of the mind which causes unhappiness. The choice makes unhappiness. And what we call as happiness is not really happiness, but it's a recollection of the bliss. Right? The same thing is pleasure also. Pleasure, enjoyment, everything is a recollection of the bliss, but not the state of bliss itself. Unfortunately, we start associating and mixing up that with the object. Rather, we should have connected with the subject. So this is the error we make. This is a fundamental error. Is that clear? So now, how to be in a state of permanent bliss is the question. Somebody said meditation is a process. Again, if you do meditation, I am not saying meditation is not. Meditation also is a condition. During a state of meditation, you experience the bliss for a duration. Is it possible to maintain the state of bliss all the time? Is the question.
But he can maintain by balancing all the things in the life.
And also if we know about our thought process, like if we know what we are thinking, then the results will occur. So we have to be very careful with the thought process.
So we have to
When
be
we are
very.
confident, then we must be.
We'll come to that, right? So let us look at some people who are in bliss. Then we'll try to infer something out of it. Because I told you what about Bangladesh people. So have you seen a kid in your house? Not old kids, very young kids. Are they in a state of bliss?
It is not possible to do that. Even if a newborn baby, why it will cry because it wants something. If once it is fed, it will be a...
See, the crying is a signal, but
It is required for the basic needs it's asking, not for the...
it is not, we can ask him for answer. See, the child, if it falls, it will cry for a moment. The next moment is forgotten. And it is continuing as if nothing has happened. The mind is not craving for something to happen. The mind is not craving, I fell down. The mind of a child is a state of rest. It's in a state of restfulness. And how many of you have experience of young kids, 2 years, 2.5 years? And how much energy they will have? They are boundless energy. There's no, the energy doesn't get sapped at all. My sister's daughter wants to play all the time. And mother is tired. She takes her to the bed. The daughter is afraid that mother will make her sleep so that she'll miss her playing time. So that's why she keeps her eyes like this, so that she doesn't fall asleep. She wants to play. And mother is already drained. Where do these kids get infinite energy? The mind is at rest. When the mind is at rest, you are connected to the infinite source of existence, which is called self, which is your true nature. You are as if you are connected to an energy source which has infinite energy. That is the real secret of children's energy. Throughout the day, they are plugged into that universe. They are plugged into a boundless source of energy because they feel boundless. Because the concepts of boundary have not appeared in the mind. So when the concepts of boundaries have not appeared in the mind is not in a state of restlessness, but mind is in a state of deep rest. When you are in a state of deep rest, you are in a natural state. In your natural state, you have infinite energy, infinite expansion. That's what children are. So, I will say, the children are in a state of bliss. moving from electrons to neutrons, to electrons, the galaxy, stars, everything is in motion, continuously motion. How much energy is required for this motion? Please tell me. Infinite energy is there for the existence, for this. But to run your car, fuel is required, energy is required. The moment fuel goes, you stop. Whereas the whole universe is running with the boundless energy. The universe is in a state of bliss. The child is in a state of bliss. Animals.
Sir, we have our own universe. Suppose if I am in the state of bliss, everybody will say I am irresponsible.
No. The state of bliss and irresponsible have nothing to do with that. In a state of bliss, you will be much more responsible. That concept itself is not true. State of being bliss and responsibility, they go together actually. They are not separate. Okay? So actually, when you say you are irresponsible, it's a state of laziness, not bliss. In a bliss, you feel so boundless energy that your creativity will increase, not decrease.
So the creativity itself is what I want to do. Sir. If I wish something else rather than what we have to do at that time, if I want to do something else, I want to play sports at the time of something, I want to do something. It's great to have energy to do something. Suppose say if I have to study today, and suppose that I have energy to go and play sports. Still it is this kind of place where I'm going and playing whatever and I'm still happy.
No, I didn't get the question clearly.
The question is that you don't have, okay, we are in a state of bliss. A responsibility and bliss go together hand in hand. So,
Yeah.
so what am I telling is, suppose let's say I want to experience a bliss. So I have my own, what you can say, ways of thinking of experiencing a bliss. If I go and play sports,
No, that's what I'm saying. That is not a notion of that itself is not bliss. What you are saying is a happiness. I am saying happiness is nothing but a label given to recollection of state of bliss. The bliss itself is an infinitely boundless state or infinite energy state. Okay? We will experience it momentarily, but when you experience, we label it, we are coming out of that.
This boundless bliss model now to do some relaxation, relax the mind, relax the body.
All those things will happen, help, but it has to be a state of unconditioned. Anything condition applies will not work, because if the condition disappears, the bliss will disappear. Do you understand? So, really, is it possible to be blissful without applying any condition is the question. So, if a condition is applied, then somebody will say a condition. Do this meditation, 5,000 rupees a course, you will feel blissful. Right? So, bliss is not a state of condition. That's what I am trying to point out. So, the existence is in a state of bliss. Is that clear to you? The plants will produce abundant fruits. They grow, they become old, die. Animals are in a state of bliss. Please understand, animals will not worry about tomorrow's food. Definitely they will not worry about a job. They don't worry about recession. Stock markets they don't know. They don't even know somebody is going to kill them tomorrow. Right? And they don't have a depression. Except dogs in your house, they have a depression because they catch disease from you. Okay? Whereas animals in the forest don't have any of these conditions. They are in a state of bliss because mind is not agitated. Okay? So,
the level of animals and child, are they aware of this discussion?
So I'll come to that because I have to make everything clear, no? Right? I will say, make a statement, everything in existence is in a state of bliss except me. Okay? Except a human being, everything else is in a state of bliss. But that bliss has a caveat to that. Have you heard of this word called ignorance is bliss? Have you heard of this word called innocence is bliss? I will put another condition, knowledge is unhappiness. Ignorance is bliss. Innocence is bliss. Okay? Knowledge is unhappiness. The trees, the planets, the galaxy are in a state of unawareness. There is no awareness level as we have. In that state, bliss of ignorance. The child is in a state of bliss of innocence. Human beings are in a state of unhappiness because they are neither ignorant nor innocent. They have become knowledgeable.
If they are fully aware that self-actualization takes place somewhere.
Self-actualization is another terminology borrowed from Maslow. Self-actualization and self-realization, they are very different. Okay? So, everything in nature seems to be blissful except a human child and human being who started growing up. Then there are a category of people who are enlightened or realized who are in a state of bliss. Now, is there a difference between this bliss and that bliss? If there is a difference, what is the difference?
They are fully known and aware of their status.
So, that is a state of bliss of ignorance. The child is a state of bliss of innocence.
This is a fully awareness state.
The enlightened one is a state of bliss of wisdom, where you are aware that you are blissful. From ignorance you have moved on to innocence, you have moved on to wisdom. In between there is knowledge. That is the state of human beings. A very small fraction of the universe consisting of human beings is in a state of unhappiness. Everybody is in a state of bliss. The bliss is natural state of existence. Now, what happened to the child when he started growing up? From innocence, what happened to the child as he started growing up?
Lot of conditions.
From innocence, child starts
Awareness.
becoming aware of surroundings first. Okay? It becomes aware of surroundings first. The child looks from the cradle at the parents. The parents look like giants to the child, the tiny child. Right? Lilliput and the Gulliver. Oh, these big fellows. And they are coming and feeding me. So these fellows, big fellows who are coming and feeding me have a lot of power. So you start developing concepts. The mental concepts. Okay? As you start developing mental concepts, that we call as knowledge actually. The more knowledge you have about the world, the more it makes you unhappy in some way. You develop two types of knowledge. One knowledge is about the world and other knowledge is about yourself. Self-knowledge and knowledge about the world. There are two types of knowledge you develop. Okay? Knowledge about the world you develop by looking at things around the parents, the surrounding, the TV, the children, the friends, the teacher, the school, the paper, the magazine. You start developing some understanding of the world that I call as knowledge of the world. And you start developing some knowledge about your own self. How do you develop knowledge about your own self? You have your own concept of self, right? I am small, I am a baby, I am a boy, I am a girl, right? This knowledge comes to us based on the way the world interacts with us. our knowledge about ourselves is a derived knowledge, not a fundamental knowledge, based on the interaction of the society and environment with us. Is that clear? We don't have a first-hand knowledge of ourselves any time in our life. You are a baby girl, you are a girl, you should not behave like this. You are a boy, you should behave like this. You are a smart guy. So all these concepts we start picking up from our parents, society, environment, religion, magazines, TV, we start picking up about knowledge about ourselves. You look at the paradox of the situation. About the world, we get a direct knowledge. About ourselves, we get the indirect knowledge. And indirect knowledge is always a second-hand knowledge based on the biases and perceptions of the other person, not on your direct knowledge. So the more we grow up, the more we get filled up with knowledge about the world, the more we get filled up with knowledge of the world, the more we interact with the world, the more we interact with the world, our identity solidifies. We become more and more clear what I am. We become specialized, I am. Somebody goes to the doctor, he has a pain in the ear. Doctor says, I am sorry, I am just a general practitioner. You have to go to ENT specialist, ear, nose, throat specialist, ENT specialist. You go to the ENT specialist. Then doctor says, no, this is ear problem, you go to specialist in the ear. Then you go to ear doctor. The doctor says, I am sorry, I am a specialist right here, you have to go to a left ear specialist. So, the more knowledge we gather, the more specialized we become. We start feeling we are very, very special beings. Very, very speciality we develop our identity. The more identity you develop, you understand you become very, very limited in identity. A left ear specialist can't understand what's happening to right ear. Definitely can't understand stomach problems. Right? I had the olden days general physician, my family doctor. If you go any problem, top to head, top of the head to bottom of the leg, he will give some medicine. He understands most of the problems. Whereas this specialist can't understand any problem. So the more specialized knowledge you have about yourself, the more limited you become. And you start clinging on to that identity, and that becomes your identity, that becomes your unhappiness. Because from a generalized condition to you have come to a narrow down, you have come down to a specialized condition, and you start calling yourself as something. First you say, I am a lady, I am an engineer, I am a computer programmer, I am working in such a condition, I am a manager, I am specialized in some skill. So that I am becomes conditioned I am. So this conditioned I am has a lot of cravings because it's conditioned. I want this because I feel bound by this condition and I want to escape this condition. That becomes the craving. Because you want to get out of the limited conditioning, that becomes I want this, I want this. I feel conditioned, and conditioned state is unhappiness. In that conditioned state, I will feel happy if somebody gives attention to me. I have one of my relatives who falls ill very frequently. He gets admitted to hospital. And if he gets to hospital, he feels comfortable there. What happens is that in hospital he gets more attention from the relatives. He feels more comfortable. So we start craving for attention. So we start seeking something because of our limited identity. Now if you are able to come out of this limited identity, drop this limited identity in some way, then your true identity emerges, and that true identity is unlimited, boundless self. So dropping this limited identity is called renunciation. Not going to the forest, not going to the Himalayas, not going to ashram, not dropping something external has nothing to do with renunciation. Renunciation has to do only one thing, dropping your limited identity. It has nothing to do with meditation also, because meditation is an action, dropping limited identity is a giving up. So that's why it's always said renunciation leads to happiness, but only your understanding of renunciation, society's understanding of renunciation is wrong. The society's understanding of renunciation, he is actually, I'll go to this. He is a Mahatma. He is such a great person, he is always blissful. Why is blissful? He renounced his family and went and took up sannyas. Are Baba, that has nothing to do with happiness. That concept of sannyas is actually another name, glorified name called divorce. Okay? The divorce has nothing to do with happiness. Divorce has something to do with court and monetary settlement. Okay? Happiness or bliss is when you are able to drop your limited identity, and dropping this limited identity is called renunciation, and dropping this limited identity is called surrender. Surrender to God is another concept. Because the moment you introduce a terminology, I have to define that. When you say happiness, peace, I have to define that. Otherwise, we are talking in different languages. You talk in French and I talk in Germany. So God, everything has to be very clearly defined. So that's why right now I'm struggling to define the word called happiness and coming to some conclusion. So the bliss, it is called renunciation. It's renunciation of limited identity, renunciation of your limited self. Now the question is it possible? If it is possible, how to do it? Okay. So again, go back to the child. The child is blissful, I told you, in unawareness. What is the characteristic of the child? The child lives totally in the present moment. It doesn't have past, no future, except maybe Cadbury's chocolate. Right? Other than that, child has no concept of past or no concept of future. It simply is in the present moment. When the mind is totally in the present moment, mind is in the state of rest. So, if you are able to consciously live in the present moment, not in the past, not in the future, then we are in the state of bliss. So how you can live constantly in the present moment? Is it possible? Not in the future, not in the past. Exactly to be in the present moment is the key to unlock the eternal bliss within. Now, is it possible to be present eternally in the present moment? It is. It is difficult, is also another conditioning of the mind. It is possible, but that's the conditions apply, right?
You have to be aware of what is happening inside. It will be always fear only because darkness, because it doesn't know what is there in the darkness.
Right.
If you know what is there in the darkness, you cannot be fearful.
Right.
So awareness is
So awareness is the key. Okay. To be living in the present moment, moment to moment, is actually the key to eternal bliss. So I will tell the words of Buddha. The definition of so-called enlightenment realization, when he said, so you think it's a permanent state, whereas Buddha said, to live moment to moment in awareness is called enlightenment. Moment to moment, live in awareness every moment, that's called enlightenment. So enlightenment is not a state to be obtained, enlightenment is a state to be lived. Moment to moment in awareness. Mind is not in the future, mind is not in the past, mind is exactly in the present. To have the mind exactly in the present, in the action what you are doing is called karma yoga. To have the mind with the full awareness of emotions what you have and appreciation for divinity in the present moment is called bhakti yoga. To have the mind contemplate and understand about the reality in the present moment is called Jnana Yoga. And to have the practices, whether it's breathing or meditation, so that mind, you are aware of the state of the mind, moment to moment, when you do the practice is called Kriya Yoga. So Bhakti, Jnana, Kriya and Karma. So these are the practices to be in the state of present moment. Okay. So now, if you have to be in the present moment, is there an effort required? Conditions apply. If effort is required,
Otherwise, our thought will flow somewhere.
correct. So I am always speaking of an unconditioned state, right?
You have to think about your thought means some effort is required.
Thinking about the thought requires the mind. Awareness about the thought doesn't require the mind. Awareness is above mind. Awareness is beyond mind. If you have to be aware of the mind, it doesn't require effort. Awareness is effortless. Thinking is effortful.
But everything is subjective, right, sir? So whatever awareness is about the subject, if you know about the subject, you will be much aware of the surroundings.
See, awareness is like a general lighting. Okay, this light is throwing light throughout the room. It is not focused on somebody. It's not a focused light. Thinking is like a focused light. Awareness is like general awareness, inside and outside. Awareness is unbounded, whereas focus or attention is bounded. So, if you are able to develop the awareness of inner and outer, then you are in a state of bliss all the time. So this is given different names: Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Kriya Yoga. But is it possible to be in a state of awareness all the time? That is an unbounded happiness. Okay? So how you can be in a state of present moment when you have in any point of time? Acceptance also is a mind. Okay? It's also a mental game.
Awareness of the thoughts.
If you become aware of the thoughts, then you are in awareness. But can you be continuously awareness in thought? Then you have to understand why thoughts come. Okay? Thoughts come to you because of your identity. Please understand. If you think you're a woman, all thoughts related to women will come and no thought related to man will come about yourself. If you are a mother, thoughts related to child will come and other thoughts will not come. If you are an employee related thoughts will come. So, the source of your thought is your identity. Limited identity. You understand? So, the solution is, can I drop this limited identity and live in the present moment? So you can drop that limited identity by understanding how that limited identity gets formed moment to moment. You become aware of the process of the limited identity creation moment to moment. Then you become free from the limited identity. This is actually called enlightenment. Enlightenment has nothing to do with nothing to do with going to the forest, nothing to do with going to the Himalayas, nothing to do with meditation. It is the pure awareness of the process of creating that limited identity moment to moment. Moment to moment you are creating that limited identity. Okay? So the moment you are able to become aware of that, you are freed from your limited identity, and that is called enlightenment.
Sir, many persons who are enlightened are renounced everything and then they got enlightenment. So it's not that they are in the family and they are enlightened. It's not like that.
I have not renounced anything.
Like Ramana Maharshi.
Don't talk about people who are not there, right? I know so many people who are in the family life, who are in the business, who are enlightened. Only thing is you don't hear about their name because they live like ordinary people. There are enlightenment people itself. I can take two days class. What are different people of enlightenment? For all you know, there may be enlightened people around your friends. You may not know. The recognition of enlightenment, you are recognizing by brand name. I am saying like enlightenment itself has a different category and flavor. Okay? The flavor of enlightenment is different from the brand name which you have quoted. The biggest brand name becomes Buddha, and Buddha will come only once in 10,000 years. Not for us. Ramana Maharshi comes once in 5,000 years, not for us. But I and you have our ordinary life. But we have to have extraordinary consciousness. That is enlightenment. That is possible for everybody. That's what I am speaking of. That's what Upanishad speaks of. Upanishad speaks of rishis who have lived an ordinary life, we have a family, children, and they're enlightened. It's an enlightened way of living, different from our concepts and brands of enlightenment. Okay? I have met people who are very ordinary, looks very ordinary, but extraordinary wisdom. Whereas I have met people, I have met very range of people. Extraordinary brand, but limited wisdom. Brand and those don't go with brand, go up to the essence, understand what is enlightenment. Enlightenment is a state of awareness, it has nothing to do with external condition. Okay? So enlightenment is not for renunciates. Enlightenment is not for special people. Enlightenment is for ordinary people for day-to-day living. That is the principle I am teaching. So hope in this 1 hour I have been able to bring some clarity about what is enlightenment, right? So achievement of that state, it requires at least 1 or 2 more sessions, because I need to get into the process, the deeper process what happens in enlightenment. So right now I am only bring to your awareness that enlightenment is nothing special. It's about an ordinary life, living with a full awareness and consciousness. It is not for some gifted people. The moment you understand the process, it becomes available for all the people. Okay? Don't be under the impression that enlightenment is some special people. They motivate us, they inspire us. But if it is not available to you, it's no use. You understand? Then you can say Buddha is once in a while, 1 million years he'll happen. It's not for me. Then what is this enlightenment about? Why we are hung up on that? Right? The enlightenment, please understand, these realized beings, what they taught is for everybody. What did Ramana Maharshi teach? What did he teach? He said, you ask a question, he said, who is asking the question? Enquire. The moment you inquire, you enter into a state of Ramana Maharshi. The question is, are you able to inquire the way he is asking the question? That's all the question. Okay? With this, I close the session today. It's already 8:35.
So we need a continuity of the because we.
That's
Otherwise, it's not. It doesn't have that.
I think next series also is Dr. Bidar and all. Continuity will be. Your main thing is now to become aware of the states that he has spoken about inside us.
See, this is actually
It's
bringing.
everybody does not need in the present you will be happy. But
No. I have nothing. I am not a theoretician, okay? I am a practitioner. I live, if something very lofty ideas are there, not for me. If I can't eat, please understand my principle of life, okay? If I can't drink a cup of coffee, if I can't read a newspaper, if I can't interact in the world with the enlightened vision, enlightenment is not for me. Okay? It is for somebody. I don't have to worry, break my head about that. For me, enlightenment is about day-to-day living. It is not about out of the world. So that is my concept of enlightenment.
that's not the process which we are asking for.
Correct. But then you have to give me some time, right?
Yeah.
So you give time, so much of time for so many things. But you need to give me some time to understand the way I am taking the topic, right? So then Vani will be arranged that.
We are very eagerly waiting for that.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much. And please understand, any of the realized masters has never claimed enlightenment is for a privileged few. He said enlightenment has to be brought to your day-to-day living. Only these things we have made them think something special and kept away from that state in our life.
Once when I was introducing Sri Prabhuji in another forum, I said he's an extraordinary being. So immediately he corrected me and he said, I am an ordinary being. All those who think that enlightenment is extraordinary are extraordinary beings. So he has put forward his secret to all of us. If we feel the secret should be unraveled a little more, it means we have to stay with whatever he has told us for the present time, and then the rest of the secret will come. A seed does not sprout within a second, isn't it? So he has tilled the soil of the mind. The ploughing has been done, and the sowing has been done. He will come back.
Actually, I have not tilled the soil.
He has
I have not
tilled the
sowed the seed.
Okay.
I am removing the weeds.
I stand corrected.
There's a lot of Congress grass in your ground. There's a lot of unwanted weed, and I'm not there to sow a seed. I am there to remove the weed, so that whatever you have will grow.
So weeds have been removed. And we will come back. Definitely that is an assurance. And like I said in the beginning, Sri Prabhuji also has classes here on Thursday. And we were introducing him before he came. So every Thursday from 6:30 to 7:30.
Okay.
Usually he is here to speak.
I am a very busy man. Okay. None of the category you call as spiritual. Okay. For me, spirituality is not away from life. Spirituality is life. If you are looking from spirituality away from life, look somewhere else. For me, every aspect of life is spiritual. I cannot separate out spirituality from life. Okay. I work in a busy schedule. I am handling a senior response. I am a senior in a senior position. I have a lot of pressures and work. I have 2 daughters who are grown up, and I have only 1 wife. So, in that I discover spirituality. That's what I share.
So let us give Sri Prabhuji a very big hand. And our Pushpa Vrishti clap also. So thanks. Next Saturday from 6:30 to 8, we have the next session in the series of happiness. That is called Happiness Quotient. That will be handled by Sri N. Vasudev. So please be with us next Saturday also. We thank all of you for your wonderful presence and for having extended your time to suit our schedule today. So let us cherish these vibrations of this inside us without putting them into words. Let us also pray for the well-being of all beings in all planes of existence. We will chant Om once and Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu 3 times. Om.